chapter 34. Genesis chapter 34. And Dinah the daughter of Leah, whom she bore unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem the son of Hamor the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. And his soul did cleave unto Dinah the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the girl, and spoke kindly to the girl. And Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, Get me this girl for a wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they had come. And Hamor the father of Shechem went out to Jacob to speak with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard, and the men were grieved, and they were very angry, because he had done folly in Israel in lying with the daughter of Jacob. Now this thing ought not to be done. And Hamor communed with them, saying, The soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. I pray you give her to him for a wife. And you make marriages with us, giving your daughters to us, and taking our daughters unto you. And you shall live with us, and the land shall be before you. Live and trade in it, and get possessions in it. And Shechem said to his father and to his brother, Let me find grace in your eyes, and whatever you shall say unto me I will give. Heap upon me ever so much price and dowry, and I will give according as you shall say unto me. But give me the girl for a wife. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father, speaking with deceit, because he had defiled Dinah their sister. And they said to them, We cannot do this thing, to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that would be a reproach to us. But in this we will agree with you, if you will be as we are, that every male of you be circumcised, then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will live with you, and we will become one people. But if you will not listen to us to be circumcised, then we will take our daughter, and we will go. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son, and the young man did not hesitate to do the thing, because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. And Hamor and Shechem his son came to the gate of the city, and talked with the men of the city, saying, These men are at peace with us. Therefore let them live in the land, and trade in it. For the land, behold, is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only on this condition will the men agree to live with us, to be one people, if every male among us is circumcised as they are circumcised. Shall not their cattle and their substance and every animal of theirs be ours? Only let us agree with them, and they will live with us. And all that went out of the gate of the city listened to Hamor and Shechem his son, and every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of his city. And it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took each man his sword, and came upon the city boldly, and killed all the males. And they killed Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house, and went out. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain, and spoiled the city, because they had defiled their sister. And they took their sheep, and their oxen, and their asses, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones, and their wives they took captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house.
And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, Ye have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me, and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And they said, Should he deal with our sister as with an harlot?
Genesis chapter 35. And God said to Jacob, Arise, go up to Bethel, and live there, and make an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you fled from the face of Esau your brother. Then Jacob said to his household and to all that were with him, Put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments. And let us arise and go up to Bethel. And I will make an altar there unto God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and was with me in the way which I went. And they gave all the strange gods which were in their hands to Jacob, and the earrings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which was by Shechem. And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities that were round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob. And so Jacob came to Luz, which is in the land of Canaan, that is Bethel, he and all the people that were with him. And he built an altar there, and called the name of the place El Bethel, because God appeared to him when he fled from the face of his brother there. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried beneath Bethel under an oak, and the name of it was called Elon-Bachuth. And God appeared to Jacob again when he came out of Padan Aram, and blessed him. And God said to him, Your name is Jacob. Your name shall not be called Jacob any more, but Israel shall be your name. And he called his name Israel. And God said to him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be from you, and kings shall come out of your loins. And the land which I gave unto Abraham and Isaac I will give to you, and to your seed after you I will give the land. And God went up from him in the place where he talked with him. And Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, a pillar of stone. And he poured a drink offering on it, and he poured oil on it. And Jacob called the name of the place where God spoke to him Bethel. And they journeyed from Bethel, and there was only a little way to come to Ephrath. And Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. And it came to pass when that she was in hard labor, that the midwife said to her, Do not fear, you shall have this son also. And it came to pass, as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni. But his father called him Benjamin. And Rachel died, and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And Jacob set up a pillar upon her grave, and that is the pillar of Rachel's grave unto this day. And Israel journeyed and spread his tent beyond the tower of Edar, and went. When Israel lived in that land, Reuben went by and lay with Bilhah his father's concubine. And Israel heard it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah were Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon, and Levi, and Judah, and Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. And the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, were Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, were Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Padan Aram. And Jacob came unto Isaac his father, unto Mamre, unto the city of Arba, which is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had lived. And the days of Isaac were 180 years. And Isaac gave up the spirit and died, and was gathered unto his people, old and full of days. And his son Esau and Jacob buried him.
Chapter 36. Now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. Esau took his wives of the daughters of Canaan, Adah the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Aholibamah the daughter of Anah the daughter of Zibeon the Hivite, and Bashemath, Ishmael's daughter, sister of Nebajoth. And Adah bare to Esau Eliphaz, and Bashemath bare Reuel, and Aholibamah bare Jeush, and Jaalam, and Korah. These are the sons of Esau, which were born unto him in the land of Canaan. And Esau took his wives, and his sons, and his daughters, and all the persons of his house, and his cattle, and all his beasts, and all his substance, which he had got in the land of Canaan, and went into the country from the face of his brother Jacob. For their riches were more than that they might dwell together, and the land wherein they were strangers could not bear them because of their cattle. Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. And these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons. Eliphaz the son of Adah, the wife of Esau, Reuel the son of Bashemath, the wife of Esau. And the sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, and Gatam, and Kenaz. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. And these are the sons of Reuel, Nahath and Zerah, Shammah and Mizah. These were the sons of Bashemath, Esau's wife. And these were the sons of Aholibamah, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zibeon, Esau's wife. And she bare to Esau Jeush, and Jaalam, and Korah. These were dukes of the sons of Esau. The sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn son of Esau, Duke Teman, Duke Omar, Duke Zepho, Duke Kenaz, Duke Korah, Duke Gatam, and Duke Amalek. These are the dukes that came of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Adah. And these are the sons of Reuel, Esau's son, Duke Nahath, Duke Zerah, Duke Shammah, Duke Mizah. These are the dukes that came of Reuel in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Bashemath, Esau's wife. And these are the sons of Aholibamah, Esau's wife, Duke Jeush, Duke Jaalam, Duke Korah. These were the dukes that came of Aholibamah, the daughter of Anah, Esau's wife. These are the sons of Esau, who is Edom, and these are their dukes. These are the sons of Seir the Horite, who inhabited the land, Lotan, and Shobal, and Zibeon, and Anah, and Dishon, and Ezer, and Dishan. These are the dukes of the Horites, the children of Seir, in the land of Edom. And the children of Lotan were Hori and Hemam, and Lotan's sister was Timnah. And the children of Shobal were these, Alvan, and Manahath, and Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. And these are the children of Zibeon, both Ajah and Anah. This was that Anah that found the mules in the wilderness as he fed the asses of Zibeon his father. And the children of Anah were these, Dishon and Aholibamah, the daughter of Anah. And these are the children of Dishon, Hemdan, and Eshban, and Ithran, and Kiran. The children of Ezer are these, Bilhan, and Zaavan, and Achan. The children of Dishan are these, Uz, and Aaron. These are the dukes that came of the Horites, Duke Lotan, Duke Shobal, Duke Zibeon, Duke Anah, Duke Dishon, Duke Ezer, Duke Dishan. These are the dukes that came of Hori among their dukes in the land of Seir. And these are the kings that reigned in the land of Edom before there reigned any king over the children of Israel. And Bela the son of Beor reigned in Edom, and the name of his city was Dinhabah. And Bela died, and Jobab the son of Zerah of Bozrah reigned in his stead. And Jobab died, and Husham of the land of Temani reigned in his stead. And Husham died, and Hadad the son of Bedad, who smote Midian in the field of Moab, reigned in his stead. And the name of his city was Avith. And Hadad died, and Samlah of Masrekah reigned in his stead. And Samlah died, and Saul of Rehoboth by the river reigned in his stead. And Saul died, and Baal-Hanan the son of Achbor reigned in his stead. And Baal-Hanan the son of Achbor died, and Hadar reigned in his stead. And the name of his city was Payu. And his wife's name was Mehetabel, the daughter of Matred, the daughter of Mezahab. And these are the names of the dukes that came of Esau according to their families after their places by their names. Duke Timnah, Duke Alva, Duke Jetheth, Duke Aholibamah, Duke Elah, Duke Pinon, Duke Kenaz, Duke Teman, Duke Mibzar, Duke Magdiel, Duke Iram. These be the dukes of Edom, according to their habitations in the land of their possession. He is Esau, the father of the Edomites.
Genesis chapter 37. And Jacob lived in the land in which his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. And these are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the boy was with the son of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought to his father an evil report of them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a coat of many colors, and when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. And Joseph dreamed a dream and told it to his brothers, and they hated him still more. And he said to them, I pray you, hear this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about and bowed down to my sheaf. And his brothers said to him, Shall you indeed reign over us? Or shall you indeed have the rule over us? And they hated him still more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed still another dream, and told it to his brothers. And he said, Behold, I have dreamed another dream. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars bowed down to me. And he told it to his father and to his brothers. And his father rebuked him and said to him, What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow down ourselves to the earth before you? And his brothers were jealous of him. But his father observed the saying. And his brothers went to feed his father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, Do not your brothers feed in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them. And he said to him, Here am I. And he said to him, I pray you, go see whether it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. And so he sent him out of the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What are you looking for? And he said, I am looking for my brothers. Tell me, I pray you, where do they feed? And the man said, They are gone from here, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. And they said to one another, Behold, this dreamer comes. Therefore come now, and let us kill him, and throw him into some pit. And we will say that some evil beast has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said to them, Shed no blood, throw him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, so that he might rescue him out of their hands to deliver him to his father again. And when Joseph had come to his brothers, they stripped Joseph out of his coat, the coat of many colors that was on him, and they took him and threw him into a pit. And the pit was empty, with no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spices and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said to his brothers, What profit is it if we should kill our brother and hide his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him. For he is our brother and our flesh. And his brothers listened. Then these passed by the Midianites, who were merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit. And they sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he tore his clothes. And he returned to his brothers, and said, The child no longer is, and I, where shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat, and killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father. And they said, We have found this. Do you know whether it is your son's coat or not? And he knew it, and said, It is my son's coat. An evil beast has eaten him. Joseph is without doubt torn in pieces. And Jacob tore his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him. But he refused to be comforted. And he said, For I will go down into the grave to my son mourning. And so his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's, and captain of the guard. Genesis chapter 38. And at that time Judah went down from his brothers, and turned into a certain Adullamite, whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. And he took her and went in to her, and she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name And she conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. And she yet conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Shelah. And she was at Shezib when she bore him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord killed him. And Judah said to Onan, Go in unto your brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to your brother. And Onan knew that the seed would not be his. And it came to pass, when he went into his brother's wife, that he spilled on the ground, lest he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did was evil in the eyes of the Lord, and therefore he killed him also. Then said Judah to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow at your father's house until Shelah my son is grown. For he said, Lest perhaps he die also, as his brothers did. And Tamar went and lived in her father's house. And as many days went by, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died, and Judah was comforted, and went up to his sheep shearer to Timnath, he and his friend Hira, the Adullamite. And it was told to Tamar, saying, Behold, your father-in-law goes up to Timnath to shear his sheep. And she put off her widow's clothes, and covered herself with a veil, and wrapped herself. And she sat in an open place which is by the way to Timnath. And she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as wife. And when Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned aside to her by the wayside, and said, Come, I pray you, let me come in unto you. For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What will you give me, so that you may come in unto me? And he said, I will send a kid from the flock. And she said, Will you give me a pledge until you send it? And he said, What pledge shall I give you? And she said, Your signet, and your bracelet, and your staff that is in your hand. And he gave it to her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. And she arose, and went away, and laid away her veil from her, and put on the clothes of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Adullamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he could not find her. Then he asked the man of the place, saying, Where is the harlot who was openly by the wayside? And they said, There was no harlot here. And he returned to Judah, and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said, There was no harlot here. And Judah said, Let her take it to her, lest we be ashamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and you have not found her. And it came to pass after 3 months afterward, that it was told Judah, saying, Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, Bring her forth, and let her be burned. And when she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, I am with child by the man whose things these are. And she said, I pray you, observe whose things are these, the signet, and bracelets, and staff. And Judah acknowledged them, and said, She has been more righteous than I have, because I did not give Shelah my son to her. And he never knew her again. And in the time of her travail, behold, twins were in her womb. And when she travailed, it came to pass that one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This came out first. And as he drew back his hand, it came to pass that, behold, his brother came out. And she said, How have you torn a break for yourself? Therefore his name was called Pharez. And afterward his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zara. Chapter 39. We're reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 39. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the hands of the Ishmaelites, who had brought him down there. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house. and he put into his hand all that he had. And it came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he did not know anything that he had except the bread which he ate. And Joseph was beautiful in form and appearance. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. But he refused and said to his master's wife, Behold, my master does not know what is with me in the house, and he has given all that he has into my hand. There is none greater in this house than I am. Neither has he kept back anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And it came to pass, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he did not listen to her, to lie with her, or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that he came into the house to do his work. And none of the men of the house were inside, and she caught him by his robe, saying, Lie with me. And he left his robe in her hand, and fled, and got out. And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his robe in her hand, and had fled, she called to the men of her house, and spoke to them, saying, See, he has brought in a Hebrew to us to mock us. He came into me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And when he heard that, I lifted up my voice and cried, and he left his robe with me, and fled, and got out. And she laid up his robe beside her until his lord came home. And she spoke to him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant, which you have brought to us, came in to me to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his robe with me and ran out. And when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spoke to him, saying, Your servant did this to me, his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison gave all the prisoners that were in the prison into Joseph's hand. And whatever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison did not look to anything under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it to prosper. Genesis chapter 40. And after these things it came to pass that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers, and he put them under guard in the house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued for a time under guard. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were bound in the prison. And Joseph came into them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him under guard in his lord's house, saying, Why do you look so sad today? And they said to him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to God? I pray you, tell me. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as if it budded, and its blossoms shot forth, and the clusters of it brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said to him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days Pharaoh shall lift up your head and restore you to your place, and you shall deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, just as you did when you were his butler. But think on me when it is well with you, and I pray you show kindness unto me, and make mention of me to Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me into this dungeon. And when the chief baker saw the interpretation was good, he said to Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, 3 white baskets were on my head, and in the top basket was all kinds of baked foods for Pharaoh, and the birds ate them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days Pharaoh shall lift up your head from off you, and shall hang you on a tree, and the birds shall eat your flesh from off you. And it came to pass the 3rd day, Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast to all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and the chief baker among his servants, and he restored the chief butler back into his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker even as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief butler did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. Genesis 41. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 cows, beautiful in appearance, and fat of flesh, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other cows came up after them out of the river, evil in appearance, and lean of flesh, and they stood by the other cows upon the brink of the river. And the evil-appearing and lean-fleshed cows ate up the 7 beautiful-appearing and fat cows, and so Pharaoh awoke. And he slept and dreamed the 2nd time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up on one stalk, fat and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprang up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 fat and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men of it. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then the chief butler spoke to Pharaoh, saying, I remember my fault this day. Pharaoh was angry with his servants, and put me under guard in the captain of the guard's house, me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream one night, he and I. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, a Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted our dreams to us. He interpreted to each man according to his dream, and as he interpreted to us, so it was. He restored me to my office, and he hanged him. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him out of the dungeon. And he shaved and changed his clothing, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. I have heard it said of you that you can understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 cows, beautiful in appearance and fat of flesh, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other cows came up after them, poor and evil of appearance, and lean of flesh, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt, for badness. And the lean and evil-appearing cows did eat up the first 7 fat cows. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still evil of appearance, as at the beginning. And so I awoke. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears withered, thin, blasted with the east wind, sprang up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this to the magicians, but there was none that could open it to me. And Joseph said to Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and evil-appearing cows that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is a thing which God has spoken to Pharaoh, what God is about to do. He shows to Pharaoh, Behold, there comes 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land because of the famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And since the dream was doubled to Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look for a man who is discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up grain under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. That food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, so that the land does not perish through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, Can we find anyone like this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since God has showed you all this, no man is as discreet and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in the throne will I be greater than you are. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand. And he dressed him in clothing of fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. And he made him to ride in the 2nd chariot which he had, and they cried before him, Bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without you shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paaneah, and he gave him for his wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 years of plenty the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up food in the cities. He laid up the food of the field which was round about every city in the same city. And Joseph gathered grain like the sand of the sea, very much, until he quit numbering it, for it was without number. And 2 sons were born unto Joseph before the years of famine came, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, prince of On, bore him. And Joseph called the name of the first son Manasseh, for he says, God has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for he said, God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenty that was in the land of Egypt were ended, and the 7 years of famine began to come, according as Joseph had said. And the famine was in all the land, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, and Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, Go to Joseph, and what he says to you do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses, and sold to the Egyptians. And the famine became sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph, because the famine was so sore in all the land. Genesis chapter 42. Now when Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, Jacob said to his son, Why do you look upon one another? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy for us from there, so that we may live and not die. And Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob, did not send with his brother, for he said, Lest perhaps mischief befall him. And the sons of Israel came to buy among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land. He was the one that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. Joseph saw his brothers, and he knew them, but made himself strange to them, and spoke roughly to them. And he said to them, Where do you come from? And they said, From the land of Canaan, to buy food. And Joseph knew his brothers, but they did not know him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said to them, You are spies, you have come to see the nakedness of the land. And they said to him, No, my lord, but your servants have come to buy food. We are all one man's sons. We are honest, your servants are not spies. And he said to them, No, but you have come to see the nakedness of the land. And they said, Your servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said to them, That is what I spoke to you, saying, You are spies. By this ye shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh you shall not go forth from here, unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you, and let him bring your brother, and you shall be kept in prison, so that your words may be proved, whether any truth is in you. Or else by the life of Pharaoh surely you are spies. And he put them all together into ward 3 days. And Joseph said to them the third day, Do this and live, for I fear God. If you are honest, let one of your brothers be bound in the house of your prison. You go carry grain for the famine of your houses, but bring your youngest brother to me, so that your word shall be proved true, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said one to another, We are truly guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore this distress has come upon us. And Reuben answered them, saying, Did I not speak to you, saying, Do not sin against the child? And you would not hear. Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. And they did not know that Joseph understood, for he spoke to them by an interpreter. And he turned himself about for them and wept. And he returned to them again and talked with them, and took Simeon from them, and bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph commanded their sacks to be filled with grain, and that every man's money be put back into his sack, and to give them provision for the way. And so he did unto them. And they loaded their asses with grain, and departed from there. And as one of them opened his sack to give his ass fodder in the inn, he saw his money, for, behold, it was in the mouth of the sack. And he said to his brothers, My money has been put back, and lo, it is even in my sack. And their hearts failed, and they were afraid, saying one to another, What is this that God has done to us? And they came to Jacob their father unto the land of Canaan, and told him all that happened to them, saying, The man, the lord of the land, spoke roughly to us, and took us for spies of the country. And we said to him, We are honest, we are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is not, and the youngest is this day with our father, in the land of Canaan. And the man, the lord of the country, said to us, By this I shall know that you are honest. Leave one of your brothers here with me, and take food for the famine of your households, and be gone, and bring your youngest brother to me. Then I shall know that you are not spies, but that you are honest. So I will deliver you your young brother, and you shall trade in the land. And when they emptied their sacks, behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said to them, You have bereaved me. Joseph is not, and Simeon is not. And now you will take Benjamin away too. All these things are against me. And Reuben spoke to his father, saying, Kill my 2 sons, if I do not bring him to you. Deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to you again. And he said, My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief should befall him by the way you go, then ye shall bring down my gray hairs with sorrow unto the grave. Genesis chapter 43. And the famine was sore in the land, and it came to pass, when they had eaten up the grain which they had brought out of Egypt, their father said to them, Go again and buy us a little food. And Judah spoke to him, saying, The man solemnly protested to us, saying, You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. And if you will send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you will not send him, we will not go down. For the man said unto us, Ye shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. And Israel said, Why have you dealt so ill with me, to tell the man whether you had yet a brother? And they said, The man asked us strictly of our state and of our kindred, saying, Is your father still alive? Have you yet another brother? And we told him according to the tenor of these words. Could we certainly know that he would say, Bring your brother down? And Judah said unto Israel his father, Send the boy with me, and we will arise and go, so that we may live and not die, both we and you, and also our little ones. I will be surety for him. You shall require him of my hand. If I do not bring him to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. For unless we had lingered, surely now we would have returned the second time. And their father Israel said to them, If it must be so now, do this. Take of the first fruits of the land in your vessels, and carry down the man a present, a little balm, and a little honey, spices and myrrh, nuts and almonds. And take double money in your hand, and the money that was brought again in the mouth of your sacks, carry it again in your hand. Perhaps it was an oversight. Take also your brother, and arise, go again to the man. And God Almighty give you mercy before the man, so that he may send away your brother and Benjamin. If I am bereaved, I am bereaved. And the men took the present, and they took double money in their hand, and Benjamin. And they rose up and went down to Egypt, and stood before Joseph. And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the rulers of his house, Bring these men home, and kill, and make ready, for these men shall dine with me at noon. And the man did as Joseph said. And the man brought the men into Joseph's house. And the men were afraid, because they were brought into Joseph's house. And they said, Because of the money that was returned in our sacks at the first time we are brought in, so that he may seek occasion against us, and fall upon us, and take us for bondmen and our asses. And they came near to the steward of Joseph's house, and they talked with him at the door of the house. And they said, O sir, we indeed came down the first time to buy food. And it came to pass, when we came to the inn, that we opened the sacks, and behold, every man's money in the mouth of his sack. Our money is full weight, and we have brought it again in our hands, and we have brought down other money in our hands to buy food. We cannot tell who put our money in our sacks. And the steward said, Peace be unto you, do not fear. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money. And he brought Simeon out to them, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house, and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he gave fodder to the asses, and they made ready the presents for the coming of Joseph at noon, for they heard that he should eat bread there. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the presents which was in their hand into the house, and bowed themselves to him to the earth. And he asked them as to their welfare, and said, Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he still alive? And they answered, Your servant our father is in good health. He is still alive. And they bowed down their heads and made obeisance. And he lifted up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, Is this your younger brother of whom you spoke to me? And he said, God be gracious unto you, my son. And Joseph made haste, for his bowels yearned toward his brother. And he sought a place to weep. And he entered into his room, and wept there. And he washed his face, and went out, and controlled himself, and said, Set the bread on. And they set it on for him by himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians may not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men marveled at one another. And he took messes unto them from before him, but Benjamin's mess was 5 times as much as any of theirs. And they drank and were merry with him. Genesis chapter 44. And Joseph commanded the steward of his house, saying, Fill the men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack's mouth. And put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack's mouth of the youngest, and his grain money. And they did according to the word that Joseph had spoken. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, they and their asses. And when they had gone out of the city, not far off, Joseph said to his steward, Rise up now, and follow after the men. And when you overtake them, say to them, Why have ye rewarded evil for good? Is not this in which my Lord drinks, and by which indeed he divines? You have done evil in so doing. And the steward overtook them, and he spoke to them these same words. And they said to him, Why does your Lord say these words? God forbid that your servant should do according to this thing. Behold, the money which we found in our sack's mouth, we brought it in to you out of the land of Canaan. How then should we steal out of your Lord's house silver or gold? With whomever of your servants it may be found, both let him die, and we all will be my Lord's bondmen. And he said, Now also let it be according to your word. He with whom it is found shall be my servant, and you shall be blameless. Then they speedily took down every man his sack to the ground, and every man opened his sack, and he searched, beginning at the oldest and leaving off at the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they tore their clothes, and every man loaded his ass and returned to the city. And Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, for he was still there. And they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said to them, What deed is this that you have done? Do you not know that such a man as I can certainly divine? And Judah said, What shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? God has found out the iniquity of your servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also with whom the cup is found. And he said, God forbid that I should do so. The man in whose hand the cup is found, he shall be my servant. And as for you, get you up in peace to your father. Then Judah came near and said, O my Lord, pray let your servant speak a word in my Lord's ears. And do not let your anger burn against your servant, for you are even as Pharaoh. My Lord asked his servant, saying, Do you have a father or a brother? And we said unto my Lord, We have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, a little one. And his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his father, and his father loves him. And you said to your servants, Bring him down to me, that I may set my eyes upon him. And we said to my Lord, The boy cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. And you said to your servants, Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you shall see my face no more. And when we came up to your servant, my father, we told him the words of my Lord. And our father said, Go again, and buy us a little food. And we said, We cannot go down. If our youngest brother is with us, then we will go down, for we may not see the man's face, unless our youngest brother is with us. And your servant my father said to us, You know that my wife bore me 2 sons. And the one went out from me, and I said, Surely he is torn to pieces. And I never saw him since. And if you take this also from me, and mischief befall him, you shall bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. Now therefore, when I come to your servant my father, and the boy is not with us, seeing that his life is bound up in the lad's life, it shall come to pass that when he sees that the lad is not with us, he will die. And your servant shall bring down the gray hairs of your servant our father with sorrow to the grave. For your servant became surety for the lad to my father, saying, If I do not bring him to you, then I shall bear the blame to my father forever. Now therefore, I pray you, let your servant abide instead of the boy, as a bondman to my Lord. And let the boy go up with his brothers. For how shall I go up to my father, and the boy be not with me, lest perhaps I see the evil that shall come upon my father? Genesis chapter 45. Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried, Cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud. And the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard, and Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Does my father still live? And his brothers could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. And Joseph said to his brothers, Come near me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Now therefore do not be grieved, nor angry with yourselves that you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years the famine has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there shall be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you a remnant in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all of his house, and a ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry now, and go up to my father, and say to him, So says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all of Egypt. Come down to me, and do not wait. And you shall dwell in the land of Goshen. And you shall be near to me, you and your children and your children's children, and your flocks and your herds and all that you have. And I will nourish you there, for there are still 5 years of famine, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty. And behold, your eyes shall see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that is in my mouth that speaks to you. And ye shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and all that you have seen, and you shall hurry and bring down my father here. And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept. And Benjamin wept upon his neck. Moreover, he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. And afterward his brothers talked with him. And the report of it was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brothers have come. And it was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and of his servants. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, Say unto your brothers, Do this, load your beast, and go, get you into the land of Canaan, and take your father and your household, and come unto me. And I will give you the good of the land, and ye shall eat the fat of the land. Now you are commanded, Do this, take wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father, and come. And do not regard your stuff, for the good of all the land of Egypt is yours. And the children of Israel did so. And Joseph gave them wagons according to the commandment of Pharaoh, and gave them provision for the way. To all of them he gave each man changes of clothing, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver, and 5 changes of clothing. And to his father he sent this, 10 asses loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 she-asses loaded with grain and bread and meat for his father by the way. And so he sent his brothers away, and they departed, and he said to them, See that you do not fall out by the way. And they went up out of Egypt, and came into the land of Canaan, unto Jacob their father. And they told him, saying, Joseph is alive, and he is governor over all of the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart fainted, for he could not believe them. And they told him all the words of Joseph which he had said to them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. And Israel said, It is enough. Joseph my son is alive. I will go and see him before I die. Genesis chapter 46. And Israel took his journey with all that he had, and came to Beersheba, and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here I am. And he said, I am God, the God of your fathers. Do not fear to go down to Egypt, for I will make of you a great nation. I will go down with you into Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again. And Joseph shall put his hand upon your eyes. And Jacob rose up from Beersheba. And the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father, and their little ones, and their wives, in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. And they took their cattle and their goods which they had gotten in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his seed with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his seed he brought with him into Egypt. Now these are the names of the children of Israel who came into Egypt: Jacob and his sons, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn. And the sons of Reuben were Hanoch, and Phallu, and Hezron, and Carmi. And the sons of Simeon were Jemuel, and Jamin, and Ohad, and Jachin, and Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a woman of Canaan. Now the sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And the sons of Judah were Er, Onan, and Shelah, and Pharez, and Zara. But Er and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Pharez were Hezron and Hamul. And the sons of Issachar were Tola, and Phuvah, and Job, and Shimron. And the sons of Zebulun were Sered, and Elon, and Jahileel. These are the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob in Pandan Aram, with his daughter Dinah. And all the souls of his sons and his daughters were 33. And the sons of Gad were Ziphion, and Haggai, Shuni, and Ezbon, Eri, and Erodai, and Areli. And the sons of Asher were Jimnah, and Ishua, and Isua, and Beriah, and Serah, their sister. And the sons of Beriah were Heber and Malchiel. These are the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah his daughter, and those whom she bore to Jacob were 16 souls. Now the sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, were Joseph and Benjamin. And unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bore him. And the sons of Benjamin were Bela, and Becher, and Ashbal, Gera, and Naaman, Ehi, and Rosh, Muppin, and Huppin, and Ard. These are the sons of Rachel, who were born to Jacob. And all the sons were 14. And the sons of Dan were Hushim. The sons of Naphtali were Jazziel, and Gunai, and Jezer, and Shilem. These are the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban gave to Rachel his daughter, and she bore these to Jacob. And all the souls were 7. And all the souls that came with Jacob into Egypt, who came out of his loins, beside Jacob's sons' wives, all the souls were 66. And the sons of Joseph, who were born to him in Egypt, were 2 souls. And all the souls of the house of Jacob, who came into Egypt, were 70. And he sent Judah before him to Joseph, to direct his face to Goshen. And they came to the land of Goshen, and Joseph made his chariot ready, and went up to meet Israel his father to Goshen, and presented himself to him. And he fell on his neck, and wept on his neck a good while. And Israel said to Joseph, Now let me die, since I have seen your face, because you are still alive. And Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's house, I will go up and show Pharaoh, and say unto him, My brothers and my father's house, whom were in the land of Canaan, have come unto me. And the men are shepherds, for their trade has been to feed cattle. And they have brought their flocks and their herds, and all that they have. And it shall come to pass, when Pharaoh shall call you, and shall say, What is your occupation? Then you shall say, Your servant's trade has been about cattle, from our youth, even until now, both we and also our fathers, so that you may live in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians. Genesis chapter 47. Then Joseph came and told Pharaoh, and said, My father and my brothers, and their flocks and their herds, and all that they have come out of the land of Canaan. And behold, they are in the land of Goshen. And he took some of his brothers, 5 men, and presented them to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto his brothers, What is your occupation? And they said to Pharaoh, Your servants are shepherds, both we and our fathers. Then said moreover to Pharaoh, For we have come to live in the land, for your servants have no pasture for their flocks. For the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore we pray you, let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, saying, Your father and your brothers have come unto you. The land of Egypt is before you. Make your father and brothers to live in the best of the land. In the land of Goshen let them live. And if you know of any men of ability among them, then make them rulers over my house. And Joseph brought in Jacob his father, and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh, and Pharaoh said unto Jacob, How old are you? And Jacob said to Pharaoh, The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and I have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh, and went out from before Pharaoh. And Joseph placed his father and his brothers, and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramesses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph nourished his father and his brothers, and all his father's household with bread, according to their families. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted because of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt, and into the land of Canaan, for the grain which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in your presence? For the money failed. And Joseph said, Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail. And they brought their cattle to Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread for their horses, and for their flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses. And he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. And when that year was ended, they came to him the second year, and said, We will not hide it from my lord, how that our money is spent. My lord also has our herds of cattle. There is nothing left in the sight of my lord but our bodies and our lands. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants for Pharaoh. And give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. And so the land became Pharaoh's, and as for the people, he removed them to cities, from one end of the borders of Egypt even to the other end of it. Only he did not buy the land of the priests, for the priest had a portion from Pharaoh, and ate their portion, which Pharaoh gave them. Therefore they did not sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, Behold, I have bought you this day, and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase that you shall give a fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your household, and for food for your little ones. And they said, You have saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law of the land of Egypt to this day, that Pharaoh should have the 5th part, excepting only the land of the priests, which did not become Pharaoh's. And Israel lived in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen. And they had possessions in it, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, so that the whole age of Jacob was 147 years. And the time drew near that he must die. And he called his son Joseph, and said to him, If now I have found grace in your sight, I pray you put your hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. I pray you, do not bury me in Egypt, but I will lie with my fathers. You shall carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as you have said. And he said, Swear unto me. And he swore unto him. And Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head. And it came to pass after these things that one told Joseph, Behold, your father is sick. And he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And one told Jacob and said, Behold, your son Joseph comes to you. And Israel strengthened himself and sat upon the bed. And Jacob said to Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and blessed me. And he said to me, Behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you, and I will make of you a multitude of people, and will give this land to your seed after you for an everlasting possession. And now your two sons Ephraim and Manasseh, who are born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. Like Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. And your issue which you beget after them shall be yours, and shall be called after the name of their brothers in their inheritance. And as for me, when I came from Padam, Rachel died beside me in the land of Canaan in the way, when there was still but a little way to come to Ephrath. And I buried her there in the way of Ephrath. The same is Bethlehem. And Israel beheld Joseph's son, and said, Who are these? And Joseph said to his father, These are my sons, whom God has given me in this place. And he said, I pray you, bring them to me, and I will bless them. Now the eyes of Israel were dim for age, so that he could not see. And he brought them near him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, I had not thought I would see your face, and lo, God has showed me also your seed. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and he brought them near to him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, crossing his hands, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph, and said, May God, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who fed me all my life unto this day, the angel who redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put your right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he is, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, In you shall Israel bless, saying, God make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. And Israel said to Joseph, Behold, I die, but God shall be with you, and bring you again into the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to you one portion above your brothers, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite, with my sword and with my bow. Chapter 49. And Jacob called to his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you what shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear, you sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power. Unstable as water, you shall not excel, because you went up to your father's bed. Then you defiled it. You went up to my couch. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. O my soul, do not come into their secret. Let not my honor be united with their assembly. For in their anger they killed a man, and in their self-will they dug down a wall. Let their anger be cursed, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob, and scatter them in Israel. In Judah may your brothers praise you. May your hand be in the neck of your enemies. May your father's children bow down before you. Judah is a lion's whelp. My son, you have gone up from the prey. He stooped, he crouched like a lion, like a strong lion. Who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. And the gathering of the people shall be unto him, binding his fowl to the vine, and his ass's colt to the choice vine. He washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes shall be darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Zebulun shall live at the haven of the sea, and he shall be a haven for ships, and his border shall be unto Sidon. Issachar is a strong ass crouching down between two burdens. And he saw that rest was good, and that the land was pleasant. And he bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path, that bites the horse's heels, so that its rider shall fall backward. I have waited for thy salvation, O Lord. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. And out of Ashur his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. Naphtali is a hind let loose. He gives goodly words. Joseph is a fruitful bough by a well, whose daughters run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him, and shot at him, and hated him, but his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel, even by the God of your father, who shall help you, and by the Almighty, who shall bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lie under, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. The blessings of your father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors, to the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brothers. Benjamin is a wolf that tears in pieces. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father spoke to them, and blessed them. Every one according to his blessing he blessed them. And he charged them, and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my father in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, the cave which Abraham bought with the field of Ephraim the Hittite for a possession of a burying place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. The purchase of the field and of the cave that is in it was from the children of Heth. And when Jacob had made an end of commanding his sons, he gathered up his feet into his bed, and yielded up the spirit, and he was gathered unto his people. The 50th chapter of Genesis. Joseph fell upon his father's face, and wept upon him, and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. And the physicians embalmed Israel, and 40 days were fulfilled for him, for so are fulfilled the days of those who are embalmed. And the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days. And when the days of his mourning were past, Joseph spoke to the house of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found grace in your eyes, I pray you speak to the ears of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, Lo, I die. You shall bury me in my grave, which I have dug for me in the land of Canaan. Now therefore I pray you, let me go up and bury my father, and I will come again. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury your father according as he made you swear. And Joseph went up to bury his father, and all the servants of Pharaoh went up with him, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, and all of the house of Joseph, and his brothers, and his father's house. They left only their little ones, and their flocks, and their herds in the land of Goshen. And both chariots and horsemen went up with him, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, beyond Jordan, and there they mourned with a great and very sore lamentation. And he made a mourning for his father 7 days. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning in the floor of Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians. Therefore the name of it was called Abel Mizraim, which is beyond Jordan. And his sons did to him according as he commanded them, for he was carried to the land of Canaan and buried in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham bought with the field for a possession of a burying place from Ephron the Hittite before Mamre. And Joseph entered into Egypt, he and his brothers, and all that went up with him to bury his father after he had buried his father. And when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, Joseph will perhaps hate us, and will certainly repay us all the evil which we did unto him. And they sent a messenger to Joseph, saying, Your father did command before he died, saying, So shall you say to Joseph, Forgive, I pray you now, the trespass of your brothers and their sin. For they did evil to you, and we pray you forgive now the trespass of the servants of God, the God of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. And his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, Behold, we are your servants. And Joseph said to them, Do not fear, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save a great many people alive. Now therefore do not fear, I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. And Joseph lived in Egypt, he and his father's house. And Joseph lived 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation. Also the children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were brought up upon Joseph's knees. And Joseph said to his brothers, I die. And God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land into the land which he swore to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob. And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones from here. And so Joseph died, being 110 years old. And they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt.